This resolution demonstrates that the so-called extradition bill is an infringement on the rights of the people of Hong Kong, including their right to a high degree of autonomy that was granted to Hong Kong when that city was returned to the control of Beijing. This resolution also establishes that the House of Representatives stands with Hong Kong protesters and supports their 5 major demands. These demands are complete withdrawal of the extradition law, universal suffrage, and the election of the chief executive and all members of the Legislative Council, the establishment of an independent commission to investigate the police's excessive use of force against the protesters, the changing of the classification so these protests are not classified as riots and the participants are not classified as rioters, and finally having all charges against the people who participated in these protests dropped. Many of us in Congress and around the United States have been inspired by the people of Hong Kong standing up for their fundamental rights over the last few months. One of the protests brought nearly 25% of the entire population of Hong Kong into the streets. That is simply unprecedented. It would behoove Beijing to heed the protesters' demands. Sadly, instead of recognizing their own role in causing these protests, the Chinese Communist Party has tried to characterize the demonstrations as the handiwork of the United States. We categorically reject this assertion. These protests were motivated first and foremost in reaction to the effort by the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party for interfering in the autonomy that was promised to the people of Hong Kong. These protests were motivated by the policies of Beijing and the Hong Kong government that has increasingly reduced the city's high degree of autonomy. The state-run media has even gone so far as to accuse a particular State Department official by name of orchestrating the protests. That is an insult to the people of Hong Kong, who speak for themselves and act for themselves. Moreover, it has put that diplomat and her family in danger. This is simply unacceptable behavior, and the Stand With Hong Kong resolution criticizes this egregious action by the Chinese government. Finally, let me reiterate my support for the other complementary bills that we are considering today on Hong Kong. The first is the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019, which was introduced by our colleague, Mr. Smith, who will be managing time on the other side. This legislation will amend the Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992 to account for the changes that have taken place over the last 25 years. The Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act also conveys to Beijing that it cannot undermine the city's freedom while expecting America to still give that city preferential trade arrangements. Also a strong supporter of Congressman Jim McGovern's Protect Hong Kong Act, which would restrict U.S. firms' ability to sell the Hong Kong police weapons to use against protesters. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from California.